children, how are you? I hope you all are doing well. So children, we all know that our body is like a machine. It has different systems present inside it, okay, or organs present inside it, which helps this machine to work, isn't it? So now in this chapter, okay, we are going to talk about our skeletal system. Okay, so let's see what our skeletal system is and how does it help our body, which is a machine, to function. Okay, so let's learn about skeletons and bones, different kinds of bones and joints, functions of different bones, and importance of muscles and our body, which is a wonderful machine. Okay, so we all know that we are our body, or we are living machines. Okay, we just function and do things as per our as per the signals that are given by our body. Okay, so our body is a living machine. It is such a complex machine that can do those works which even the most powerful machines and computers made by humans cannot do. Our body is made up of cells. Okay, cells together, they make up tissues, and tissues form organs which perform different functions. So what is our body made up of? Cells. Cells, when they come together, they make tissues, and tissues, they form what? They form the organs. Okay, and these organs, they help us to perform different types of activities or function or do work. Okay, now these organs, they work together and form a system. We will now study in detail about the skeletal system. So all these organs, they come together. Okay, our entire body, okay, is dependent on some or the other organ at any given time. Okay, so let's talk about the skeletal system. The skeleton of human being is a framework of bones. So if you look at this diagram, the human skeleton is nothing but just a framework of bones. Okay, now these bones, what is their function? They protect the internal organs. Okay, there are external organs, the organs that we can see. Okay, these are the external organs like eyes, ears, hands, legs. Okay, these are all the external organs that we can see. But there are internal organs like the heart, the kidneys, the lungs, the brain, which we cannot see. So these internal organs, they are protected by whom? They are protected by bones. So it also, apart from that, apart from protecting the internal organs, these bones also give shape, support and strength to the body. So white and red blood cells, they are produced by whom? They are produced by the bone marrow. Okay, in the bones, it is produced by the bone marrow in the bones. A child has more than 350 bones, but as the child grows, some of them join together, and then, okay, in an adult, okay, adult human, there are 206 bones of different shapes and sizes. Okay, we can feel the bones, okay, inside our body, but we cannot see them. Okay, bones, they are hard structures made of living cells and minerals. They have their blood supply and nerves. Now the human skeleton, it consists of the following main parts. So the main parts of the human skeleton are the skull, the backbone, the ribs, the girdles and the limbs. Okay, now let's begin with the skull. Where is the skull located? It is located on the upper body, okay, of a human being, that is in the head. Okay, the skull is made up of how many bones? 22 bones. 8 flat bones are interlocked together and enclose the brain inside it. So there are 8 bones that protect the brain. Okay, there are 14 bones in the facial region. Okay, in the facial region there are around 14 bones. If you touch with your hand, you can feel the bones. Okay, all the bones in the skull are fixed except the lower jaw. Okay, so the lower jaw is the only bone that is not fixed. Okay, that is the reason why it helps us to do the movement of our mouth. Okay, the movable lower jaw helps us to talk and also to eat. Okay, so if you look at the diagram, you can see the hole for eyes, you can see the hole for nose, you can see the teeth and the lower jaw. Okay, now the backbone. The skull is attached to the backbone. It is made up of 33 small bones which are called the vertebrae. These vertebrae are arranged over each other, okay, and form a tube-like structure which is known as the vertebral column. Okay, it protects the spinal cord. So, if you touch your back, okay, you will feel this backbone, okay, which is made up of 33 small bones, okay, which are known as vertebrae, and this, when they are the arrangement of these bones, okay, in a tube-like structure is known as the vertebral column. Okay, it protects the spinal cord. Now, the rib cage. This is the, you can look at the figure of the spinal cord here. The rib cage. The rib cage consists of 12 pairs of ribs, okay, that curve around the back of our body towards the front. Okay, they covered from the back to the front. Okay, the rib cage, it protects the lungs and the heart. Okay, the lowest two pairs are called floating ribs, which are joined only to the backbone. Okay, next is the limbs. The forelimbs or the arms are joined to the spine with the help of shoulder girdle. Okay, a shoulder girdle consists of a pair of shoulder blades and a pair of collarbones. So, the limbs, okay, you have the forelimbs or the arms, and these are joined to the spine with the help of a shoulder girdle. Okay. Now, a shoulder girdle consists of a pair of shoulder blades, the shoulder blades which are there, and a pair of collarbones. Okay. The longest bone is the femur. Okay. It is also called the thigh bone. It is the longest, okay, and it is attached to the hip girdle. The long bones of the body contain a jelly-like material. The long bones, they have jelly-like material which is called the bone marrow. Now, what are joints? Joints are the places where two bones are joined together. Okay? In our body, joints can be movable or immovable. Now, which are these immovable joints? What are these? These joints are fixed and they do not allow any movement. Okay, so they are the fixed ones. They are the, for example, the interlocked bones of skull. So, all the bones of the skull, they are interlocked. Okay, these are immovable joint. Okay, now movable joints. Okay, these joints provide free movement to the body. These joints are covered with cartilage which prevents the rubbing of bones against each other. Okay, so now our body has 4 types of movable joints. The hinge joint, they can move up and down or backward and forward like the door hinges. Like if you see the door, okay, the door is attached to the wall with hinges. Okay, so you must do this thing at home. You observe the door at home, you will see that it is attached to the wall or to the wooden frame with the help of hinges. Now, these hinges are the hinges that help the door to open and shut. Okay. Now, so similarly, if you look at your knees and elbows, okay, you can fold your knees, you can open your knees, you can fold your arms, you can open your arms. This is because of the hinge joints. Okay. Now, there is ball and socket joints. Which are these? One of the bones end in a ball that fits into a hole or a socket in another bone. Okay. This joint allows the bones to move easily in a hip joint in a large circle. Shoulder and hip joints are example of this ball and socket joints. So, now there are socket joints which are there near our shoulder areas or our hip areas that help us to do the movement. Okay, and that also help us to move easily, okay, in a large circle. Now, pivot joint. This joint is found between the skull and the first 2 vertebrae of spine. It allows you to rotate your head. Okay, it allows you to rotate your head and permits sideways, upwards and downward movement. Okay, when you do your head exercises, this joint plays a major role, the pivot joint. Sliding joints. This joint allows you to move your hand and foot from side to side as well as backwards and forward. Example, wrist, ankle. So, see this is all the movement which is happening due to the sliding joints. Okay. Now, what are ligaments? Ligaments are the strong and tough fibers which join bone to bone. Okay. So, these are the fibers that help in joining the bones from the one bone to another bone. Okay. Tendons. What are tendons? They are strong fibers which join bones to muscles. Okay. Now, you have to do this activity. You have to take a happy rug doll and move it. It can bend and twist easily. Why this happens so? If we do not have bones, will the human look like this? Find out. Okay. Now, move your hand on shin bone. Okay. Kneecap and jawbone. While doing this, move the parts so that, okay, you can feel the joint. Now, try to distinguish between the joints on the basis of the movement they allow. Okay. Try this experiment with your these different types of shin bone, the kneecap and the jawbone, and see whether you can know what is the movement of it and how it happens. Okay. Now, let's talk about the muscular tissues. About half the weight of our body is that of muscles. We have 650 muscles and each one produces a particular movement. At least 2 separate muscles are needed to move a joint. Example, our arm movements are controlled by 2 muscles or biceps and triceps. When we pull up our arm, the biceps which are joined to the arm become shorter and pull up the lower arm bone. When we want to lower our arm, okay, when we want to lower our arm, our triceps which are at the back become shorter and they pull our lower arm bone. Okay. So, all these bones, okay, the muscles, they help them in the movement. And for any particular movement, there are 2 separate muscles that are involved, okay, or to move a joint especially. So, arm movements controlled by 2 muscles, biceps and triceps. When we pull up our arm, when you are pulling up your arm, biceps are joined to the arm and to the arm they become shorter and then pull up the arm, lower arm bone. Okay. Now, when we want to lower our arm, our triceps, okay, which are at the back, okay, they become shorter and they pull our lower arm bone. Okay, you can try this at home. Okay. Types of muscles. Which are the different types of muscles? Voluntary muscles and involuntary muscles. Now, what are voluntary muscles? Voluntary muscles are under our control. Okay. We can control these muscles. Example, the legs and arm muscles. They are voluntary muscles. Involuntary means these muscles are not in our control. Okay. These muscles control movement of food in the alimentary canal. Okay, movement of the eye muscles. So, these are the muscles that we do not know how they work, they take their own control. Okay. Now, cardiac muscles, these muscles are involuntary muscles and these are found in the heart. Okay. Now, let us do a quick revision of our skeletal system. Okay. The skeleton, it is the framework of bones that protect and support the body. There are 206 bones in an adult skeleton and there are 650 muscles. Okay. The human skeleton consists of the skull, the backbone, the rib and the limbs. Our body has 4 kinds of movable joints: hinge joint, ball and socket joint, pivot joint and sliding joint. Voluntary muscles are under our control, whereas involuntary muscles are not in our control. Okay. Now, quickly do the exercise. Okay. Take the correct option. The joints of skull are hinge, immovable, movable or pivot, they are immovable. Okay. And elbow has hinge, pivot, ball and socket or sliding joint, elbow has a hinge joint. Okay. Bones are attached to the bodies by ligaments, tendons, fibers, or backbone by ligaments. Spinal cord is protected by skull, vertebral column, rib cage or hip joint, vertebral column. These give shape, support and strength to our body. Muscles, bone marrow, nerves or bones, bones. There are 206 bones in our body. Fill in the blanks. Okay. The dash contains immovable joints, the skull. Dash is a strong tissue which joins bones to bones. It's the ligament. The dash is the longest bone in our body. It is the thigh bone or femur. The muscles which are not under our control are called involuntary muscles. Okay, now true or false? The human skeleton consists of the skull, backbone, ribs and the limbs. Absolutely true. There are 206 bones in a child's skeleton. False. Okay, there are 350. Okay, in an adult it is 206. Cardiac muscles are found in the limbs. False. Okay, they are in the heart. Organs work together and form an organ system. Yes. Floating ribs are joined to the breastbone. Yes. Okay. Now, match the column. Ball and socket joint, it's at the hip portion. Pivot joint, neck. Okay. Hinge joint. Okay. Hinge joint is in your knee. Okay. Sliding joint, wrist. Okay. And skull is immovable. Okay. Now, take the correct option. The skull protects brain or jaws? The brain. Backbone is made up of 33 or 31 vertebrae? 33. There are 650 or 206 muscles in an adult. Muscles, it is 650. The knee or wrist has hinge joint. It is the knee. Okay. Now, write one word for the following. The longest bone of the human body is the femur or the thigh bone. Muscles of the heart. Okay. What are the muscles of the heart called? Cardiac muscles. The lowest two pairs of ribs which are not connected to the breastbone are the floating ribs. Muscles are connected to the bones by these fibers. Which fibers connect the muscles to the bone? They are the ligaments. Okay. Now, short answer questions. Which part of the facial region is movable? What is it that is movable in your facial region? Is the lower jaw. Okay. How is our skeleton useful for us? What is it that our skeleton does? Okay. And how is it useful for us is what you have to mention here. What are the tendons? And what do you mean by ligaments? Okay. And what is bone marrow? What do you mean by the term bone marrow? Where is it situated? What is the difference between involuntary and voluntary muscles? You have to mention the difference between voluntary muscles and involuntary muscles. Okay. Muscles that we can control and muscles we cannot control. Okay. Now, long answer type question. Write a short note on the following: skull, backbone and rib cage. You have to write a short note about it, whatever it is. Okay. Explain it in short. The difference between ball and socket joint and pivot joint. What is the difference between these two types of joint? What types of joints our body has? What are the different types of joints that our body has? Okay. And you have to draw a diagram to show the hinge joint and to show the sliding joint. Okay. And how do our muscles work? Explain that in detail. Okay. Now, in the following picture of the human skeleton, some parts are incorrectly labeled. Label these parts correctly. So, you can look at the diagram in the chapter and then accordingly write the correct labeling of it. Now, critical thinking skills. What would happen if the spine consisted of only one lone bone? Okay. If that was the case, then we wouldn't have been able to bend or turn. Okay. Out of 14 bones of facial region, only the lower jaw is movable. Explain. Lower jaw helps us in eating and in talking as well. So, that is the only joint that is movable. Okay. Now, case-based studies. Hinge joints can move only up and down or backward and forward. Like door hinges, example knees and elbows have hinge joints. In ball and socket joints, one of the bones ends in a ball that fits into the hole or socket of another bone. Okay. This joint, it allows the bones to move easily in a hip joint in a large circle. Okay. Example, shoulder and hip joints. Pivot joint is found between skull and first two vertebrae of spine. It allows you to rotate your head and permits sideways, upwards and downward movement. Sliding joint allows you to move your hand and foot from side to side as well as backwards and forwards. Example, wrist and ankle. Ligaments, they are the strong and tough fibers which join bone to bone, and tendons are strong joints that strong fibers that join the bones to muscles. Okay. Now, joint between knees and elbows is, what is the joint between your knees and elbows called? Hinge joint. Joint in shoulder is ball and socket joint. Okay. What are ligaments? They are strong and tough fibers that join bone to bone. And what are tendons? They are the strong fibers which join bones to muscles. Okay. Life skills. Vishal, a new comer to your class. Okay. He is not able to walk properly and he uses a wheelchair for coming to school. He is a talented, serious and determined boy. What should be correct, okay, attitude towards him? Okay. Take the correct option. Show pity on him, talk to him, play with him, doing homework for him, eat with him or doing everything for him. What is it that should be the right attitude? Okay. You should talk to him, you should play with him, you should eat with him. Okay. You should let him do his own things also. You should not show pity to him. Okay. You should be kind to him. Okay, instead of showing pity and sympathy, be kind to the person, involve that person. Okay, that will make him feel much better than showing pity at him. Okay, and let the person do his things by himself. Okay, you can always help him. Okay, now let's do something new. You have to make a model of bone. You have to take two plastic strings of blue and red color. Wrap a transparent or colorful cellophane paper on it. Then take a yellow sponge and tightly wrap over it and tape its ends. This will form bone marrow. Take another sponge of different color and wrap over it tightly. Now, to show hard compact bone, take scrubber that is used by your mother to clean utensil. Wrap it tightly over it, and this is the model of a bone. Okay, now explore. You have seen certain people limp in old age and complain of pain in the knee joint. Can you find out a suitable reason for that? If we have fractured bones and the gap between the bone is very wide, what do doctors suggest to the patient then? Okay, have you heard of the term osteology? Okay, find out when and where the study of bones started. So, this is so much of information that you need to explore. But before you explore this vast information, you need to quickly reread the chapter and finish all the exercises, all right? And then start exploring and finding more information. So, get going.